But first, Bear Grylls has said this week that he's embarrassed he used to promote veganism, including publishing a plant-based cookbook. The survivalist says he mostly now eats red meat, animal organs, eggs, dairy and fruit, and apparently has never felt better. So is meat the way forward? Earlier, I spoke to Glen Burrows, co-founder of The Ethical Butcher, and the plant-based health coach, Vanessa Sturman, about this very question. I began by asking Vanessa what she thought of Bear Grylls' massive about-turn.
So I think we need to be really careful about what we tell the public, because there are so many benefits to eating more plants and a plant-based diet. But it's also very, very important that people realise that you can get so many benefits from eating more plants, whether you're fully plant-based or not. So sometimes if someone like Bear Grylls says, I'm not going to eat vegetables at all, we are struggling with our health as a nation because we're not eating enough plants. You know, our gut lives off fibre. You know, that's what our good gut bacteria eat. They eat fibre, which comes from plants, and we get huge amounts of nutrients from them. So it's quite worrying when someone as influential as him is encouraging people to eat less vegetables, not more, and also pick things very much as an either or. So I don't want people to think, all right, I'm either fully plant-based or I'm not eating plants at all. Everyone can benefit from getting more plants and these nutrients into their diet, whether they're fully plant-based or not.
But I think what people might be swayed by is what he says about how his vegan diet had a negative effect on his health. He didn't feel he was getting good nutrients. It had a poor impact on his mood and his gut. And now he feels he's got better nutrient density from blood and bone marrow. And his skin's never been better. And yeah, he's all in. He's a meat guy, but with eggs and also with fruit.
I think this is a really important point to discuss. Our nutrition education is not fantastic, and we do sometimes see when people change to a particular diet. And I've seen people try to go fully plant-based and not get enough nutrients, not because of plants, but because they're not having a balanced way of eating. Maybe they're not getting enough high-protein food. They're not getting enough variety of food. Sometimes not eating enough food as well. And I would love to actually see exactly what Bear Grylls is eating, where he says this wasn't giving me the nutrients that I need. And there is a problem, for example, if you go to a lot of restaurants, sometimes the plant-based options are not fully balanced. You know, I'll go and eat those and go, look, I wasn't full, I wasn't fully satisfied because it wasn't a properly balanced meal. And I think this is quite common, like I said, because people don't have the nutritional education to have a fully balanced, varied way of eating. And when you do actually do that, you do that properly, the benefits are huge from, like I said, fantastic gut health. Our gut needs fibre to feed it, easier to maintain a healthy weight, and we put ourselves less at risk of diseases such as heart disease and type 2 diabetes.
Thanks, Vanessa. Glen, you heard Vanessa's a little bit concerned about the message Bear Grylls is promoting. When you look at what people say about their diet, about 75% of people in Britain eat meat. I mean, they happily eat meat, regularly enjoy meat. 12% are flexitarians. Probably they go for meat-free days. I mean, I would include myself in that, even though I love meat. 6% say they're properly vegetarian, and 2% say they're vegan. Where do you come at this from, especially as you're an ethical butcher?
Right. Well, funnily enough, my story isn't too dissimilar from Bear Grylls. So I did a degree in food science nutrition. In the first year of my degree, the BSE crisis was breaking, which was caused by feeding abattoir remains back to farm animals, which is obviously a abhorrent process that caused disease mutation. And that put me off eating meat. And I was a vegetarian for 25 years. And I was eating a very well-balanced diet. I was eating a lot of whole grains, a lot of seeds, nuts. I was eating a lot of grains and pulses and all kinds of things. But after 25 years of doing that, my health was declining. And it was only when I put some high-quality animal products back into my diet that I really felt like I achieved proper, vibrant health.
In what way was your health declining? You need to tell us this.
Yeah, I was doing an awful lot of exercise and I just wasn't recovering very well. I was in my early 40s at this stage. I was developing some beginning of some autoimmune conditions. My digestion was terrible. My energy levels were up and down. My blood sugar management was terrible. I just really wasn't very well. And when changing my diet, so cutting out the grains and the seeds and the nuts, keeping eating vegetables and fruit, but swapping out the sources of protein for animal products, my health improved dramatically. And that really set me off on a journey of discovery. I wanted to be able to consume animal products, but with the most minimal impact that I could possibly find. And that led me towards co-founding a business where the animal products are sourced from regenerative agriculture. So the animals have had a benefit to the ecosystem that they're raised in.
Right, yeah, I was going to ask you about that because one of the reasons why Bear Grylls and other people go vegetarian isn't just for the perceived health benefits, it's for the environment. So how do you do this in a sustainably, environmentally friendly way?
Well, I would argue that factory farming refers to anything that's grown in an industrial way, and that could be a field of wheat as much as it could be a shed full of chickens. All our food needs to be grown in a sort of nature harmonious way. But the thing is when you grow a crop, you only want that one plant to grow in that field. And so a lot of care and attention is taken. Usually, there is a lot of chemical intervention to kill anything other than the crop you want to grow. But if you keep animals in a regenerative system, you're trying to create as much life as you possibly can. That means other plants, other animals. So, for example, grass-fed or pasture-raised beef, they're grown in a system where you've got countless different plants, countless different animals, all existing in an ecosystem. And effectively, the humans are taking the place of, you might call a apex predator or a keystone species, in that we are keeping the numbers of the grazing herbivores in check, and we are harvesting the extra nutrients that the system can provide. But you can do that in a way that is carbon neutral, carbon negative. The devil's in the detail with all these things, and meat has been unfairly demonized.
Right, Vanessa, and if meat has been unfairly demonized, perhaps it's the driving force behind the increasing number of vegetarians in Britain. It's going up all the time. Does it worry you if the pendulum might be swinging the other way?
Well, I think it's very important to, first of all, look at factory farming, which Glen mentioned, which is really, really horrendous for our planet, our environment, and also the animals. But on an overall scale, we slaughter about 80 billion land animals a year. And,
globally? Is that globally?
Globally, yeah globally. And they all need to be fed and watered. So there's a huge environmental impact in order to do that, instead of just feeding plants. We have to grow lots of plants to feed to them, as opposed to growing plants to feed to humans, of which there is a lot less of us.
I hear an objection there from Glen.
I do. I mean, it's a bit of a myth that animals are eating things that we could eat. In fact, I do agree that animals should never eat things that we can eat. But globally, it's only about, I think it's between 6 and 7% of what animals are fed is a human-grade food. In fact, we use animals to process a lot of the plant-based waste from the other things that we eat. I mean, take, for example, a cob of corn, sorry. You're growing this enormous plant that's sort of 6 or 7 feet high, and we're only eating one small part of that. What do we do the rest of it? Well, we can turn all that cellulose into high-quality meat. We can feed that waste product to cows. So it's not as cut and dry in saying we're producing all these foods for animals. But, when it comes to the type of foods that the ethical butcher is producing, the cows are only eating grass. They're only eating things that are growing naturally that we can't eat. So, I'm against factory farming, but I'm also against factory farming of vegetables, because you mentioned 80 billion land animals are killed to feed us. That figure is true, but the figure is way much higher if you look at the number of animals killed to protect our crops and to keep plant-based foods produced.
I tell you what, I'm guessing, Vanessa, that the majority of our listeners, as much as they're interested in that side of this discussion, want to know what they should really be eating in order to have a good, proper diet that will give them as many healthy years as possible. Because the pendulum swings from one direction to the other. Yeah.
I do also just want to mention, just very quickly, back on the environmental side of things, that even if we are not able to eat all of those crops ourselves, it's still a huge amount of land that is required to grow crops to feed all those animals, even if not every single bit is something that we're eating. Like the majority of soy grown on the planet is grown to feed to animals, as opposed to humans.
Grown to produce oil. It's grown to produce oil that is pressed out of the soybeans, and the animals eat the remaining seed meal after it's been pressed for oil for human use. Animals aren't fed whole soybeans.
Right. But I still want to know, Vanessa, what you would recommend, because you have gone fully plant-based and I'm sure, I mean, how do you feel on it?
I feel absolutely fantastic. And this is the thing, most people going fully plant-based, and I would usually guarantee that a lot of the time they are not having fully balanced meals, the ones that don't. But like I said, this isn't about going fully plant-based. This is about getting more plants into your diet. And it sounds like Glen actually agrees with me on that as well, in terms of eating some plants as well, and that there is benefit to that, which is good. And I think it's very important that we do not see things as a massive either or as well, because I think that stops people making really good choices. So in terms of what we should be eating, lots of whole foods. That means move away from things like processed food and move a lot more towards the whole fruit, the whole vegetables, grains, nuts, seeds, filling up your plate with fruit, vegetables, whole grains, lots of protein. You're going to get that in beans. You're going to get that in tofu and tempeh. Really, really fantastic for you. Fiber keeps you really, really full. You're going to get loads of fiber from plants. That's where fiber comes from, and it's going to be feeding your gut. The more you get a diversity of it, the more you're going to feed your diverse microbiome. So you're going to get that diversity of good gut bacteria in your gut, which is what you need for optimal health. So getting a huge diversity of plant foods, get lots of different colors, that's going to get you lots of nutrients, making sure you've got complex carbs in there, whole grains, potatoes, sweet potatoes, yams. There's a huge, huge range. Lots of protein, as I said.
This sounds great. This sounds great, Vanessa. This sounds great. I'm going to have to let you land there. It sounds great. and it basically describes what I try to do each and every day, although I will have meat maybe 4 times a week in some shape or form. So, Glen, what about that? For your good, diverse microbiome, have your meat, but get a lot of colour on your plate.
I mean, I completely agree. I think the one thing that we both agree on is the most important thing is to eat whole foods and to source those foods, whether you're fully plant-based or whether you're omnivore, whether you're flexitarian or whether you're animal-based. And animal-based is kind of almost the sort of opposite of vegetarian in that you source most of your nutrients from animal-based foods and you fill in the gaps with plant-based foods. But no, I completely agree. I think the quality of the ingredients is the most important thing. Minimally processed, cook as much as you can from scratch, and eat as many different things as you possibly can. But I mean, the fact of the matter is that, animal-based foods provide us with the 2 essential macronutrients. You could argue that fiber and carbohydrates are not essential for human health, but protein and fats absolutely are. And animal foods produce those in the most bioavailable way, forms and most complete forms for our body. So I would say make your meat and fish the best quality, the most sustainable that you can possibly get your hands on, and then fill in the rest of your diet with the highest quality organic vegetables, grains, nuts and seeds, whatever agrees with you, to make up the rest.
All right.
Yeah, I have to disagree in saying that
go on,
fiber
Vanessa.
is just very briefly to say fiber is completely essential. It is what our good gut bacteria eat. They're called prebiotics. So
it's not
to say
essential
that
for life. There are a lot of people who eat a pure carnivore diet. It's beneficial, but it's not essential, and there's a difference.
Well, I would say it's essential if your gut bacteria eat that, and that is key to our immunity in our body and key to our functioning. So in terms of, it's not just beneficial, I'd say it is essential to have that throughout your life. There might be periods where someone isn't having that, but is that sustainable for their long term and a good health span? No.
All right, I'm going to have to leave it there because we're not going to agree. But I think we can safely say have variety in your diet. Eat lots of greens. I certainly do. I eat nuts as much as I can. Love my blueberries. But the occasional steak and full English, believe me, it's like heaven. Oh my God, I can't tell you how much I enjoyed that chat. Fantastic discussion there with our 2 participants, Glen Burrows, co-founder of The Ethical Butcher, and the plant-based health coach, Vanessa Sturman. Your thoughts, please. Text us on 87222. Start your message with the word times. Is that Jenny who says, do male and female bodies need different nutrition? For example, do men need more meat, but women need less? I'm not quite sure at a glance, Jenny. Men definitely eat far more meat than women. I know that studies have shown that men's meaty diet is responsible for about 40% more climate heating, as they call it, emissions than women's. That's a study from the University of of leads, but increasingly people are abandoning a heavy meat diet. More and more people are going vegetarian, or at least flexitarian. This is Henry Bonsu on Times Radio. Coming up shortly, I'll be talking to TalkSport's Michael Wade.